All right, so we are looking at a little bit of marketing today because that is going to be a big part of, if you are going to be your own business owner, marketing is absolutely key. It is how you are able to reach people in order for them to come and get your goods and services. So actually, here's a really weird example of like marketing, because now social media is a big part of like what we do. But I'm going to give you guys an example of how I fell for marketing. Literally like last night around like 8:30, right as I was getting ready to go to bed, actually, because I was wiped out, exhausted yesterday. I went to bed at like 9 last night. But here's a great example of how like marketing drew me in and immediately like got me as a customer. So this is somebody who's on social media who just started their own like small little Etsy account, like a little arts and crafts website. Um, and this guy he's like an artist, and he draws maps in the style of the Lord of the Rings. Like the Lord of the, like what you would see in like the Hobbit and stuff. And he made one for like the state of like my social media account knows that I'm from Oregon and I buy a lot of like Oregon themed things. And this guy has like an Oregon one coming soon, and it like popped up on my news feed immediately. I made like a 10-second decision and immediately purchased this poster. I fell for that like that. And that's just a really good example of like how effective marketing can be. It's also a really good example of how social media is using machine learning to take your data and know everything there is to know about you. But that is why they're doing it. Because it's like, this is going to make this nerdy kid's brain light up immediately. And it did. I was like, oh my God, I have to have that. But that is sort of like that's sort of what we're talking about today. That is the goal of understanding the 4 P's of marketing. You're trying to figure out like what makes you so appealing as either a personal trainer, or maybe if you are operating a gym. If you're starting your business, we're talking about like what makes you so appealing that somebody literally goes, I have to get in on that. I have to become a part of that, So we are covering the 4 Ps today. One little side note that has nothing to do with like the lesson, but just to give you guys an example of like, remember, like there's only going to be about 10 questions from your professional development chapter on your overall test. Some of it's going to be about marketing. None of it will be about resumes and cover letters, by the way. That was just a Sochi thing. But some of it will be about marketing. Some of it will be about like understanding the difference between an independent contractor and like an employee. Some of it will be about like your continuing education. So it doesn't just come from this chapter. Those 10 questions technically can also come from your trainer, like NASM handbook, which is something you'll get once you have your test codes to go take your test. Like once your account is made and it's like live and stuff, you'll see a little PDF download thing, and it walks you through the recertification. It walks you through the test process and also like the recertification process. Technically, that's the only place in the entire world where you'll find questions on your NASM that are not from your textbook directly, right? Like they can't ask you anything unless it's in your textbook. Except for that, they can ask you like, because CEUs are not, there's no information about continuing education in your textbook. There's information about certification, but not recertification, basically. So that is the one little like caveat there. So what I'm saying about today is like we are looking at marketing. These are a lot of like vocab terms, which since they can only ask you 10 questions and the chapter is very, very small, these are a couple terms that are going to be handy to be really familiar with so that you can kind of pull those out anytime you need to on your test. So let's go ahead and look first. So what is marketing, right? We're going to start by defining that. So marketing is, oh, that's kind of funny. That's actually kind of the definition right there. Interesting. So marketing is going to be defined as the ways in which a individual promotes their goods or services, right? The idea here, the idea behind like this is that you're trying to promote your services to somebody, but you're trying to sort of draw them in with, highlighting the most effective ways that your business is appealing to them, right? We want to be as appealing to as many people as possible, or in sort of a reverse strategy, you want to appeal to a very, very, very specific demographic. Like both of those are really good sort of opposite versions of marketing, right? Like when you think about like a lot of foods, for instance, they'll offer like a large like product line, and that like is so that they can appeal to as many people as possible. But if you look at like something, let's see here, something that's more specific, and there's so many products in the world, why can't I just think of a really good example that's appealing to, well, I mean, honestly, like the health and fitness industry sometimes. CrossFit is actually kind of a good example. That's appealing to a very specific demographic. People who are, CrossFit sort of has a reputation of being, kind of intense and a little more extreme, that's part of the appeal. But at the same time, they are sort of reaching that group exercise dynamic as well. So we'll look at some other examples there, and I'll come up with some better ones by the time we get there. But that's sort of how your marketing is going to work. You're either going to hit a really broad audience or a very narrow audience, and both of those are actually really effective strategies. So there's kind of three main steps here that are sort of associated with coming up with a good marketing plan. And so like the first one is you kind of want to identify what like needs there are in the world. Step two, you want to develop like an effective product to meet that need. And step three is you want to promote your goods and services. So a lot of people think that marketing is just promoting their goods and services, but that's not the only thing that it is. It's also how like you discover and fill those needs, or maybe it is only what marketing is, but it's certainly not like the only process you need to go through when you're coming up with like a good business idea. I love this, by the way. I love this three-step process. You guys know how much I love talking about the three-step like trainer process, right? Like number one, we identify what's wrong. Number two, we solve it by coming up with an effective program to address whatever's wrong. And then step three is like we integrate the solution, right? That's honestly like, look at how similar that is to like marketing. You guys have probably heard me say it. Like, remember when I said like trainers go through that three-step process, like mechanics, doctors, like it's just the three-step like problem solving process. And it even goes into like, I often mention, I was like, it even goes into like the sales side of like how you do sales is like you have this kind of three-step process. So the three kind of major steps here are going to be step one, identify your customers. I'm going to put potential customers, just it's identify potential customer needs, right? Actually, no, let's put step one. So, identifying something needs, that's like coming up with an idea like that, what's something that people like need in this world. By the way, if anybody ever wants to steal this idea, I've had a business idea that I've always thought would be pretty effective and easy to open. You need a fairly high startup cost, but once you've got it, like your overhead is just very small. But I always thought it would be pretty effective to open like basically an assessment company, like a fitness assessment salon, and it would literally just be in like a storefront, because you wouldn't need like you wouldn't need your own building or anything like that. You don't need a ton of space, but it would just have like a body fat tester with like it'd have like a bioelectric impedance body fat tester, but it would also have like a DEXA scanner, which is that bone mineral density tester and can do body fat percentage. I would do hydrostatic weighing as well. I would have 3 different types of body fat testing, just because I know, with like 3 different price points. Then we would also have a high-speed camera set in front of like a gridded backdrop so that you could do posture assessments and, you know, take pictures of it and show people and be like, okay, so here's a breakdown of your posture. Here's 10 exercises that would be really good for you. And then like VO2 testing, wing gait testing, and I'd have two different versions of that VO2. I'd have people who could be able to do it on the spin bike, or people could do it on a treadmill. And then finally, like RMR testing. And you know, and now that like DNA tests are getting so popular, there's like, you can a little bit read into your fitness traits too. I thought maybe that'd be kind of cool. But basically it would just be like a complete work down on like who you are. And that way, like if you already have like a trainer, you can take all that information to your trainer and be like, here's all the stuff I learned about my body. And your trainer be like, great, that makes it really easy for me to pick 10 exercises. Boom, let's do this, you know? But then if I ever wanted to like do personal training, and I would have like a list of trainers that I could like send, you know, it's like, well, if you want training, like you can reach out to these people. Or I could like snag a client for myself on the side every now and then. So I just thought it'd be kind of a fun business idea. And like, there's places that exist like that now. Like there's places out there that have VO2 testing. There's even like a kind of a mobile one here. So like, let's see, a VO2 testing, VO2 max testing, and then I'll just put my zip code in and see if first link, and my concierge MD executive health. There we go. Look at all that. They have like, yeah. Oh, these are like full on like physicals, and they do like H. pylori test. Okay, well that's intense. This is a medical office, which is not bad. I mean, like that's great. Yeah, this is a full on like doctor more so than a trainer. But you can see they have like a VO2 test that you can go, you know, buy and pay for and stuff. And it's cool. It'll tell you your VO2, and then, you know, like you can come back every couple of months and get your stats retested. So I always thought to be kind of a fun business idea. Anybody wants to steal it, it's yours. But
would you also, like in that testing, would you also give like postural distortions, like on what to work on? And
oh yeah, absolutely. Like that's what I would do. Like
okay.
it's basically
Oh, that's
taking
cool.
like so this is like what we're going to get into tomorrow, but this is like my number one sales technique. Like a lot of people focus on like the art of sales when they're learning how to like sell personal training. I just focus on my skills as a trainer. Like I've got all my points put in how good I can tell someone what a personal trainer does. Like when I sit somebody down, or what I do is I take somebody through an assessment, and then afterwards I sit them down. It's like, here's all of the stuff I learned about your assessment. Here's all the stuff I learned about your posture and your body. And here is how I'm going to address it if you sign up for training. If not, here's some stuff
Gotcha.
you can take home with you, and like, you know, good luck. I hope you, you know, I hope you succeed in your goals. And so like that kind of stuff, like when I start talking about just like, so when we're working together, like when I write you a plan, here's what's going to happen every 4 weeks. We're going to reevaluate and see if we're dialing in. That right there is like what makes people go, oh, well, I don't know any of this information. I can't do this without this person who just broke all this down. Rather than like, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, like the other sales technique, like, you know, they say like when it comes to sales, people are buying you as a, you know, you want to be as appealing as possible and have as much rapport as possible. All of that is still true. Like, I'm not saying any of that is untrue, but I put way less emphasis on like sales technique and like sales theory than I do on just like doing what a trainer's supposed to do. You know, that to me is the number one tool in your tool belt.
So yeah, it sells itself by showing, you know, what you're getting into.
Yeah, and somebody's like, you mean my knees cave in when I move? Like, you mean like my posture's not like, I'm not a straight line, you know? Like,
Yeah. Yep.
and it's like, no, like you've got like little distortions just like everybody has, you know? And so like they're like, oh, well, how do I fix that? It's like, that's what's causing my knee pain. And it's like, probably, I can't guarantee that's what's causing your knee pain, but I do know that like, you know, adducted and internally rotated knees are associated with like tight IT bands, which rub on the lateral condyle, which cause inflammation, which causes pain. So like, I can't guarantee it, but there's definitely an association there. And it's just because you haven't stretched your adductors and they're like, what are my adductors? I have to hire you, you know, like, so that's kind of, to me, the most effective way, you know, like the customer's needs is like, in my opinion, a lot of times, um, knowledge, you know, which is something we all have in spades, you know. So so that's really what we're looking for here. First step is going to be identify your customer needs. You know, what is something in the fitness industry? Actually, you know, I'll say health and wellness industry that someone needs, right? What's something that's not being filled right now? I mean, look at how these meal plan services have sort of popped up in the last, like, what, they've been around for like 5 or 6 years. Like, it started with like things like Blue Apron. um you know, I'm not sure they were the first or anything, but like, you know, these little kits that are mailed to your house, and it's got exactly the right number of tomatoes and the right number of cucumbers, and you know, a skirt steak weighed to the right size, and it's like, okay, and then it's got cooking instructions, like pull it all out of the box and go through these steps. It filled a need, you know, like, which is convenience. That's really a big need that people have. Obviously, people need to eat, and some people don't necessarily know how to cook. So like, it's kind of landing in a lot of different places. What's something in the health and feel like, one of the questions you want to ask yourself when you're starting a marketing plan is like, what's something that needs to, you know, help people right now? You know, for instance, like, we know that people are getting unhealthier as time goes on, right? Like, we're not getting healthier as a society. We're getting unhealthier, right? Like, we're seeing mortality rates like younger and younger, diabetes younger and younger and younger. So how can we address those? Well, by offering like health and wellness solutions, you know. And NASM has like a lot of different ways to kind of help you with that, but you have a lot of ways like in the industry to sort of do that. You could just offer regular old personal training. That's fantastic. It's great. That's our bread and butter, you know. But then also, like, if you, when you guys get your nutrition certifications, you're going to know how to talk about nutritional services and like what types of things are higher in nutrient dense versus other things that are like less nutrient dense and just higher in energy, you know. And that's really the big problem a lot of people have. It's like, I've had clients like take photos of their plates. I was like, do me a favor, just take a, like, all this week, like, you can show them to me on the way, but like, let's just for 1 week, I want you to take a picture of all your meals and bring them into me, and we're gonna take a look and evaluate some things. And a lot of times, like, people have like, you know, they'll have vegetables on their plate, but like the amount is usually lacking, right? Like, that's the biggest thing that like people often struggle with is like portions, you know. And so like, if you learn about like portion control in nutrition, which is a topic we do cover, you'll be able to kind of help others with that. And so like, that's a need somebody has. And then on the other side of things, like, you know, again, like doing fitness assessments, that's huge. And then there's like youths and there's senior needs. So there's a million different like needs out there. You just kind of need to figure out like what it is you're going to primarily focus on. So step one, you want to kind of get your identity of like, what type of trainer do you want to be? You don't necessarily have to have that figured out by the time you graduate, but like, if you are going to like start your own business, it's good to kind of have like what your identity is going to be, you know. Like Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is brilliant when it comes to marketing. So much so, it's like part of the reason why Santa Claus in the US is red and white. That is part of the reason why Santa dresses in those colors. It is literally because of Coca-Cola. I'm not making that up. Google it. It's crazy. It'll blow your mind. But like, you know, what they are marketing specifically towards like enjoyment and like togetherness. I mean, like they're slapping like the names, like share a Coke with, you know, so and so. That's brilliant. That's great marketing. So they're like a company. So when you think of like coming together, you know, you think of having a Coke with a friend. They're not marketing towards like, yeah, you can drink this and lose weight, you know. Like, they're not marketing towards this is going to make you healthier. They know like what their identity is, like what are the customer needs. The needs that they identified were like togetherness, you know. Then we got like step 2 here, which is going to be like develop the appropriate product or service to satisfy those needs. So your step 2, you need to come up with a product that's going to meet whatever needs you're talking about. Like if you like the idea for like the assessment business that I just mentioned, well, then you better be a master of assessments, you know? That's developing the product to meet that is, you know, in your case, a lot of our cases, developing ourselves to have the right set of skills, you know? I don't have like a super traditional, I don't have like a lot of extensive training when it comes to sports. I have a lot of like general training when it comes to sports, but there's no sport in particular that I am an expert on. And this is one of the reasons why like some of our students will ask sometimes, I'm gonna pull this open just in case, I like to see a face reaction on this one. So sometimes like people ask us, they're like, why did Sochi, when you guys were picking out like the certifications that people get, why did Sochi go with corrective exercise and nutrition rather than corrective exercise and sports? Because NASM's like 2 most popular sub-certifications. I mean, obviously their most popular is, you know, regular CPT, right? I mean, that's the main one. But like after that, you have the sub certifications, like that second tier that are, you know, tests from home that are not like NCCA accredited. They're just a small certification used for continuing education. So a lot of people ask, well, like the 2 most popular ones are CES and PES. And I've already talked about this for some people, but fun history lesson, the CES and PES didn't exist when NASM first started. Originally, the PES was actually the top of the OPT model. So you would go like stabilization, strength, endurance, hypertrophy, max strength, power, sport specific training, or like super maximal power. And then there was actually another level as well. So 7 levels or 7 phases on the original OPT model. And it was corrective exercise. Then it went stabilization. Then they kind of realized like, not everybody always needs super corrective stuff. Not everybody wants to do sports. So they broke the model down and they took it to 5 phases. And then each of those individual phases became the NASM corrective exercise specialist, that's the CES, and the performance enhancement specialist, that's the PES. So there's a fun little history lesson for you. Very specific type of history. It's like NASM history. So those are definitely NASM's like most popular certification, but we chose to go with corrective and nutrition. And here's the reasoning behind that. Like, and this is just my take. I'm not trying to make some big revelation in the industry or anything. And I'm certainly not saying it is not an awesome, I'm not saying it's not an awesome certification. But the PES, the Sports Performance Specialist, as good as that certification is, and I love that textbook, it's got a lot of really fun information. It makes you good at athletics in general. And the world of actual athletic training, like the world of being an athletic coach, is very specific, very not general. So like the PES book is going to go through your regular NASM stuff, and then at the end it's going to have some examples of like soccer, football, boxing, golf, tennis, I think, baseball, basketball. I think that's it. I could be wrong, but I think those are the big sports they're going to have. I might be missing one that's like really obvious, but and all of that is great. You know, there's like a couple pages on that sport, and that's really handy. But if you want to be like a coach for basketball, like that is going to be your main focus, right? You need to read an entire textbook on basketball and get a certification on basketball training, not something that's like general sports training. Does that make sense to everybody? Or like track and field, right? That's a really good example as well. You wouldn't read, like, look at track and field in general. I mean, look at how many sports that is. You wouldn't read a book in general on sports, then coach somebody for the shot put and the 100-meter dash. Those are two totally different events. You know, you would want to have specific information on, like, what angle is most effective? How do you deal with somebody who might not turn, whip their head around when they're shot putting as effectively, or like, what do you do when somebody can't get upright fast enough when they're coming off the blocks? What if they keep their lean too long, that kind of stuff, unfortunately, just isn't in, like, those are very small specifics. So that's one of the things. Corrective exercise, totally the opposite, right? Corrective exercise is something that can apply to basically everyone. Nutrition is something that can basically apply to pretty much everyone. And sports is a really, really great certification, but it applies to everyone a little. But to get hired, you're going to want to know, it's like, what the difference is? It's like, it's knowing a little about a lot versus knowing a lot about something little. That's kind of the difference. Like, that's sort of how, that's kind of the information we want. So when you're developing your product or service, right, we're trying to get you guys as general as possible as you start. Now, if you want to become like a specific coach for something, that's great. Like, if that's your dream and you want to like open a coaching business, like you want to open like a football camp, and like you're like, we're gonna do like after school training for kids, that's my thing. And it's gonna be like, parents can bring their kids and it'll be a whole, fitness regime for like teenagers who are looking at like developing. That's great. Like, that's an awesome program. You want to develop that product as effectively as possible. Like, you found a customer need, right? Which is like parents who want to enroll their kids to make them better at sports, or kids who are, really passionate about those sports, right? That's the customer. Those are the potential needs. In order to fill that need, you want to come up with like a very specific product that slots right in there. And it's like, this is something that is after school. It's convenient. It's centrally located. It fits all those things. Like, oh, I need something that's centrally located. I need something that's after school. I need something that makes me better at football. Boom, right? So I kind of went off the rails a little bit into like NASA country, because that's a black hole for me and it sucks me in. But like, that's kind of what we're talking about. We make the most transferable skills we give you are the nutrition and corrective. Doesn't mean that you have to just stay in that sort of range. Let's say you want to be a trainer and you don't want to focus on training people. Let's say you're not interested in like working in a gym, and you are more interested in things like helping people get their eating habits in alignment, right? Maybe like you have a really great story where you got your own eating under control and like built a really healthy relationship with food, and now that's what you want to do. Awesome. You can do that through NASM as well, with the nutrition certification, the nutrition coaching, and the behavior change, the two things that are sort of most important. So again, and you don't have to go with NASM. You could go with, there's millions of certifications out there. But that's a way that you develop that need. A lot of times when we're talking about developing, we're talking about developing ourselves, because that's the number one thing you're marketing. So how can I develop my product or service in order to meet the needs of my customers, of my potential customers? Right? Certifications. Is it going to be certifications? Is it going to be location? Is it going to be like time offered? It's kind of, here's a really kind of good example of like an industry meeting a very specific need. I'm going to take a poll here. Tell me if you guys have experienced this. Now, me personally, we're in LA. Like, LA is so different. So I'm going to go to like, Supercuts generally. But looking at like salons, like hair, like barbers and salons and stuff, you guys ever notice how they're closed on like Mondays instead of like Saturdays and Sundays? Like you get the classic like Monday through Friday job, you take the weekends off. But a lot of times like salons, They close like Mondays. They stay open like most of the week. Yeah. And the reason they do that is because they know that their customers' needs are to come in on the weekends when they are not at work, right? Like they don't have time to sit in the salon. I mean, especially like if you've got like, like going like girl hair. I don't know any better way to put it, but like, like hair that needs to be taken care of, hair that doesn't look like this, uh, hair that doesn't look like a clown. Like that's like a couple hours at the salon. You don't have time to do that on a work week or a work day. So they offer it on the weekends. That's a great way to do, that's a product that was developed specifically, right? And then there's other things like we know that like maybe you're going to be stuck there for a little while and bored. And that's why there are magazines there, like there's all those little things are the product, my ex used to go to the salon that always had like mimosas. They had like they had like a freaking what do you call it? Where you just like a cooler, or not a cooler, but like a tub with a spigot, and it had mimosas in it, and she was like, it's the best salon ever, and I was like, all right, like, and I'd always have to pick her up because she would be there for a few hours and get sloshed. So like that's a specific product, she's looking for getting her hair done while not being bored, so that's all of those things are things to consider when you're developing your potential product. And then finally, the thing that we're all thinking of when we think of marketing, which is how are you going to promote, step 3, promote the services and solutions in a cost-effective manner, right? So now you got to figure out like how can you reach as many people as possible, because you are trying to meet those people. Like you might have the world's greatest product, but if Jan down the street doesn't know about it, she's not going to buy it, right? She's never going to find it. So how are you going to promote your services in a manner that is both effective and not too expensive, right? It's in a way it's not going to break the bank. One of the simplest ones, like I remember Mo and I started actually somewhat around the same time. He came a little bit later than me, but like I remember like getting to know him and like meeting him, and like he was new to town, like he moved out here and stuff, and he was I in the first, I'd say probably first 3 months he was here, he went and got new like little postcard flyers made, and he put one in every one of the boxes in the building that he lives in, which has like a small gym. So he immediately like, found a pretty simple solution to like get his name out there, and he got a couple clients like right away. That were people that like lived in his building. And at this point, I don't even know if he has any of them, because like he's got kind of a limited client list, and that's the luxury of being successful at marketing, is eventually you market so well, you kind of get to pick and choose who you want your customers to be. It's like, well, this, I'm raising my rates, and then it's like all of a sudden maybe you lose a few people who were, what was you were marketing towards them was like cost effectiveness, and well, now like you're maybe a little more valuable, and so you're not marketing towards like people who are trying to save money anymore, and so all of a sudden you lose a few of those customers and reach a couple new ones, while earning more money. So that's how are you going to promote those in like a method that is effective and not too costly. How can I get my product or service to meet people in a way that is both effective and not too costly? So those are the questions you got to ask yourself. All right, so identifying your customers' needs. I guess I already kind of talked about each of these pretty in depth, but here is sort of some more traditional examples of step 1, 2, and 3 here. So step 1, identifying your customer needs. Fitness clientele are going to seek out personal training for like a lot of different reasons, but the 3 big ones, the 3 most common for identifying customer needs, bullet point. I big intro. I went a little off the rails there. So people are going to seek out personal training for a ton of different reasons, but generally the three most common, and these are general, but the three most common are going to be a desire to improve how they look, a desire to improve their sports performance, or just a general, to improve their general health, right? So like somebody might want to lose weight to look good for their wedding that's coming up, right? Somebody might want to increase their athleticism so they don't get so winded when they're playing pickup basketball. Or somebody wants to, they were told by their doctor that they have cardiovascular disease and they need to start exercising regularly. Those are sort of the three most common things here. So the three most common reasons people seek out personal trainers are going to be a desire to improve appearance, a desire to improve sports performance, or a desire to improve general health, right? And we'll make that one. It's like general health. Isn't all that general health? We'll go with dealing with any specific comorbidities, right? Maybe they're dealing with that. Whatever the reason, the ultimate motivation is to improve the overall quality of life, right? That's a big thing to remember here. Like no matter what reason somebody comes to you, they're trying to like make their life better by filling it with this specific product. And that, again, specific product is you, right? That's really the thing we need to remember. So whatever the actual reason is, people are just trying to make their life better. The reason people buy, like I'm moving into my new place, I'm gonna buy a new bed. The reason I'm doing that is because like my other bed is fine and somewhat comfortable, but like, it's only okay. Now I wanna get like a better one. I'm trying to make my life better by buying a specific service, get higher quality sleep. The reason I'm moving into a new house is because I think it'll make my life better. Like that's at the end of the day, like everything comes down to like the reason somebody does something, they're trying to make their life better, right? So whatever the reason, I'll put this in italics actually. Whatever the reason a person seeks out for a personal trainer, the ultimate motivation. Improve overall quality of life, right? How do you improve somebody's quality? Or how do you convince someone that your product is going to improve their quality of life, right? Well, that's where developing your product or service comes in, right? So develop the appropriate product or service. All right, so how will your product, you need to, again, usually this comes through certification as personal trainers. Usually this comes through developing yourself and getting new continuing education, sub-certifications. Like I wanted to, know a little bit more about like TRX training. So when TRX rolled through LA, I was like, boom, I'm going to that workshop. I had to go to, I wanted to know a little bit more about like how to use that in my sessions because another trainer was doing it. This is when TRX was like really new, by the way. This is like decades ago. Well, a decade ago. But like, there was a trainer one of my coworkers, and she would always bring in her TRX, and our customers looked like they were having fun. It was trendy. It was kind of cool. And those were really the main reasons I was kind of drawn to it. And then I went there and I went, oh, well, this is actually also very convenient. There's a lot of other really amazing things that come with this. And so I started getting like TRX stuff and using it. And my clients were like, this is really cool. And then they started purchasing it and they started asking me for specific exercises to kind of write them programs that they could do at home. And so it made my training more effective, right? So I developed my product or service to bring more people in. And I did that by learning a new skill. Now, if you're opening like a specific business or something, it's a little bit different. Your product or service, like if you are trying to like develop it specifically is going to be a little bit different than rather than just sort of investing in yourself and like gaining new skills. Instead, it'll actually be about like kind of bringing something tangible into your business. So for instance, like a small PT clinic that I used to work in also always offered like hand towels and like a bottle of water with every service. And it was like a big deal. Our boss was the owner was huge on that. Like he was like, it's so important that like the minute they walk through the door, what I want people to think about is the fact that like they are greeted with service with a smile and immediately given like a luxury of like a towel and a bottle of water. Like, and so we had to have them all laid out on the counter, like, before people were getting there. So I'd lay like a ton of those out in the morning, folding these towels specifically and putting away because it looked nice. And get that ready. And then like anytime I had some free time, I was setting up those bottles of water like before anybody would come in. And that right there was like part of the product that he was offering, right? He was offering not only like physical therapy, but also a somewhat luxury experience, that's the product. So, you need to kind of figure out like what your product is going to be. How does that meet your customers' needs? So personal training is often viewed as like a luxury, but we certainly know that it's moving towards being a necessity. Again, the world is not exactly getting healthier. So how can you develop a product that sort of meets those needs? You look at like Peloton and like Tonal and all of those like interesting fitness products that are coming out nowadays, like the wall mirror thingy that has your name programmed into it and stuff. That's a product to meet the growing need. Like, what's the need? People need to get healthy. What's the other need? Convenience. People need something that's convenient that they can do in their house. So how do you develop yourself in that? Well, you get reliable transportation, and you mentioned that you're like an in-home personal trainer. It's like, I will come to your home for this many dollars an hour. I have all the equipment. You don't have to do anything. It's convenient for you. So what are you actually marketing? Are you marketing personal training, or are you marketing convenience? Or are you marketing both? That's sort of the product or service you're looking for. So what you want to do is you want to ask yourself like, develop products that specifically address those common customer needs, right? A trainer who will help someone burn calories effectively to alter appearance, right? Maybe you're just talking about how it's like, look, I'm going to help you learn how to maximize your calorie burn so that like we can get you to lose weight as safely and effectively as possible. Or maybe it's like, I'm going to help you learn how to change your habits to be a more generally active person, which will help you burn calories, which will help you change your appearance, right? Like again, it's all kind of roundabout, but it's like, are you going to address it from one angle or another? Any angle is good. That's a good example there. And then finally, like the most effective way to sort of market your services. So promote your services cost-effective manner. Whoop, we lost Nancy for a second. She's back. And this is where basically the 4 Ps come in. So we're going to leave this kind of short here, but this is going to be the marketing mix, AKA the 4 Ps of marketing. All right, so how do you actually like market effectively? Well, there's kind of 4 main areas that you want to mostly consider. Again, right here, guys, these 4 things, great vocabulary words. These are things that make good test questions. Are they the most important things to know in the world? Maybe, maybe not. But no matter what they are, they definitely make good test questions. So, let's take some time to get these memorized. So those 4 Ps are going to be product, price, place, and promotion. By the way, this is not just an ASM thing. The marketing mix is actually something that maybe somebody who's taken actual like marketing or business class in school, you may have actually heard of these before. This is the whole marketing mix is a very common thing that marketing has been talking about for forever. So, so let's first look at product here. What is product? Product is the specific product or service offered to the customer, right? So looking at product, there's a few things to consider here. You know, like variety is a good example of product. Are you a personal trainer who offers just one-on-one personal training, or do you also offer like duo sessions? Do you also offer like small group training? Are you only doing hour-long sessions? Are you doing 90-minute sessions? Maybe you're doing 30-minute sessions. I had a friend, the product he offered, and he did so well at this that now he actually opened his own gym. He's got like a place called Retrofit or Retro Fitness. But he like was a massage therapist, and he was also a pretty good cook. And he would come to people's house, and he only worked with like very high end, like luxury clientele. But he would like come to their home and train them, and then like whip up a meal, and then like also give them like, he was like a personal chef, personal trainer, massage therapist. And so he was like addressing like the three main parts of like, you know, health and fitness. And he was charging like, you know, $100 an hour with like a 2.5 hour minimum. So you have a couple of those sessions a day, you're pretty much taken care of, you know? And so like, that was a pretty interesting product he offered. So, you know, what is your specific product? There's a couple of different things you want to think of, like variety, right? The more variety you offer, the more likely you are to be able to market it to someone. So let's actually put that down here. So variety, right? The depth is going to be the depth. Within the product line. Right. Again, Coca-Cola. Let's go to somebody who's drinking Coca-Cola, but also worried about like their calorie intake. They might go, you know, that's where they started offering diet Coca-Cola, which was sugar-free, and arguably way worse for you. We can talk about that another time. But then they offered, you know, for people who were a little worried about like that version. So then they started offering Coke Zero. It's still sugar-free, but doesn't tastes like actual Coke instead of a different flavor. And then, you know, they started offering Coke with stevia in it, because people heard that like the stuff that's in those other versions causes cancer, which it possibly does. So like, you know, they offer like more variety within their depth. What are you going to offer, right? Like, what are you going to offer as a trainer? Like I said earlier, when I was talking about like my little storefront version, right? I was going to have multiple methods for testing body fat percentage. So that's the depth within your product line. Features is another one. Characteristics that are that separates you from the competition, right? So features is more like the small things that make you different than any other trainer. All personal trainers are offering 60-minute sessions. All personal trainers are offering you know, a big calorie burn throughout the day, right? But like, what makes yours different? And so like, is it going to be like, well, I have a behavior change specialist certification as well. We're not just going to talk about like addressing your fitness. We're also going to talk about your habits. Like, how can we make better habits? How can we come up with strategies to help you avoid overeating? You know, like those are features, which is going to be different than services. Services are really close to features, but features are usually like something tangible, whereas like services are something a little more like mental, right? But like corrective exercise, right? That's a feature. It's like, well, every trainer is going to teach you how to stretch. I'm going to show you, I'm going to actually like do manual stretching therapy with you. So that's like a feature of your services, you know? Like that's something I do in all my personal training sessions. Like I warm somebody up by just having them like stretch and stuff like any other trainer would. But during their cool downs, I always go through like manual stretching. So I'll, place somebody's ankle on my shoulder and then like stretch out their hamstrings. Like that's just like a personal touch at the end of the session. So that's your features there. And then services, right? Usually these are very, like I said, very intangible, but they're similar to features. They are process. These are benefits to, oh my God, benefits to the customer that are usually intangible, right? So like you being a trainer who's really good at explaining things in a way that's simple for someone to understand, that's part of your service. You always being like chipper and optimistic and motivating, that's a service, right? You being able to motivate somebody because like you're the best at barking commands at someone and like getting like, oh yeah, like somebody likes that like boot camp style, like let's go, that's a service. So that's, that's the small parts of your personality. A lot of times those are services versus features, which are like things that separate you, like you give your clients homework, whereas other trainers just train them when they come to the gym, right? If they have something they can kind of hold, that's the difference in service and features. You don't necessarily need to know too much about the differences between these, but I like to kind of make it clear. And then lastly, appearance, which is how your product is packaged. So like, are you going for like super upscale? Are you going for professional? Are you going to down to earth? Me, I like to think that I'm like more marketed towards down to earth. When I started my boot camp, I didn't have a lot of money to buy a lot of like training equipment, which is why I don't have any of it anymore, because the training equipment that I came up with was usually really, really ratty looking. For instance, like medicine balls that were like cracked from the gym, they were gonna throw those away, and I was like, I'll take those, and I took them home and like used like caulk to fix them and repair them, and then I covered it in duct tape so they wouldn't re-break, because literally that is all I could afford. I did not have enough money to buy new medicine balls when I first started my boot camp. I got a lot of things from like Craigslist that were like rusty and kind of worn out, but like that was also sort of part of the feel. I kind of had a lot of cobbled together equipment when I first started. And so I was aware of that, and I marketed my service as like a down-to-earth, nitty-gritty boot camp. When you think of boot camp, I want you to think blood, sweat, and tears. I wasn't marketing towards people who are looking for like an upscale boutique experience. I wanted people to leave dirty and worn out. And that's kind of like that was the thing that I was aiming towards. Not that I couldn't go in the other direction. I totally could, right? I could have gone completely in the opposite direction and be like, we're going to do a boot camp. I probably wouldn't call it a boot camp. I think boot camp kind of makes people conjure up images of getting dirty. But I would say like, we're going to do group exercise, right? And it's going to be it's outdoors and peaceful and quiet. But even though you're outdoors, like you're getting this calm experience, and I would market towards that instead. And I'd focus on keeping the area very clean, and I would dress probably in solid colors like all the time, like those little things. That's, again, you are your product, so you're going to market it in a very specific way. Then we got price. So this is the next of the 4 P's, right? Price here. The main 4 P is what you really want to know, by the way. Like this is the stuff they'll ask you, not these little small ones here. But price is going to be the amount charged for your goods or services. Now, this does include volume discounts, seasonal pricing, and bundle packages. So when you are considering your price, You want to ask yourself not only like how much you're charging for your services, but like what are your policies about like how you accept money? Are you going to do it through Venmo? Well, then like the price is convenient for some people, but maybe that's not something that like an older client is super comfortable. They're like, what is Venmo? You know, like, something to definitely consider when it comes to like your price. Are you going to accept credit cards? You know, is that something that's like part of your business? You know, nowadays it's easy. You guys have Square, you know. Square makes it really easy for personal trainers to kind of just have a credit. It turns your phone into a credit card machine. Back when I did it, I had a Square, and it was like, you know, it was a whole thing you had to fit into your auxiliary port on your phone and like slide the card. Still convenient, but like totally different back in the day. So like that's part of your price as well. So there's a couple different ways to consider like pricing. There's the cost plus method, which is basically adding a standard profit above like how much it costs. This isn't super applicable to personal trainers unless you are offering like, if you're also selling products in addition to stuff. But basically cost plus is the way that most retail businesses price things. So like when my parents owned the pet store, for instance, stuff cost, what was it, 1.25 as much as it was wholesale, I think is what they did, or maybe it was 1.5. But it's like, so if they bought something for $1, it was on, you know, it was sold for $1.25 or $1.50 or whatever. That's cost plus, right? It costs you this much, you want to make a profit, so you charge this much, and then all of that middle space there is the profit. So when it comes to like cost plus, the only things you have to consider as a personal trainer if you are selling individual personal training is like your cost for gas. Are you paying rent at a gym? That's definitely something to consider. Like let's say like you are not doing in-home training. Let's say you decide to go to like a trainer's gym. So like I'll look one up here really quick. Gyms for trainers. So we're gonna look up like a place where you can take your clients. I do not know Mandy's gym, but let's take a look here and see if that is one. Mandy's gym, you know, website. Oh, Mendy's gym, not Mandy's gym. Oh, see, they have a staff. No, see, yeah, this is like just a regular gym. That's not what I'm looking for. All right, well, I'm over this. I'm going to go to one that I know. At One Fitness. They are getting some advertising. So At One Fitness is a gym. It's a trainer's gym. So they don't have like trainers on staff. They don't have like clients or anything like that, like in a traditional sense. They are a gym that exists for personal trainers to bring their clients, and they charge you rent. So like you're not allowed to take your clients to places like LA Fitness. You're not allowed to take your clients to places like 24 Hour Fitness. So if you're gonna like need a gym to train your clients in, you would come and go to like personal training. Like they have like a few trainers that have like lists here. But basically like you come here, memberships. Oh my God, I know that picture. How does it work? Well, I don't remember, but they used to charge me $15 an hour. So let's say I trained like 4 hours in a row, right? My costs for that day would be $60. I spent $60 training, right? Paying rent at my gym. I certainly should be charging more than that. You know, charging 15 an hour is not going to cut it. Which is why, like at the time, I used to charge $75 an hour, and that way I would make a $60 profit on top of like however much I was charging. So I was going for about $75 an hour back in the day. That's an example of cost plus, right? It cost me this much, so I'm going to charge above it to make a profit. There's also value based. Like, are you going to market your service in a value based manner, right? When you're considering price. And that's a good way to consider, you know, like I know that I'm drawn to value like as a consumer, but I know that my friend Seth is not. Like my friend Seth is drawn to like quality. That's the number one thing he cares about. Like he's willing to pay more money if there is a perception of like enhanced quality. Me, I'm always looking for the best deal. So I'm very much like a value-based consumer. But basically, what's all the stuff that like are small benefits that have like value outside of it? Like, you know, are you a personal trainer who is offering, again, features and services that are not really included in the price? They're just things that come along with that trainer. If you are constantly giving your clients homework, like you're writing out a program that they can then follow, uh, that's an example of like, oh, well, I'm paying for personal training, but I'm also getting like kind of this cool homework stuff that I can do outside of the gym. I'm paying for personal training, but my trainer is also, allowing like checking in with me on the weekend. So I'm getting coaching in addition to that. That's going to be what you consider with like value priced. And then there's competitive price. Competitive price is really simple to understand. It's literally like the people around you, what do they charge? Are you going below it? What's the going rate for training in your area? And then one other thing you are going to want to consider when it comes to pricing is the psychological aspect of this. And some people are more vulnerable to this than others. But basically, 2 sessions for $199 looks a lot better than 2 sessions for $200. There is just something about like that one that's in there. It just makes it look cheaper. I mean, some people are just like, no, that's $200. Like some people don't. They tend to round up. I tend to be kind of like that because I'm pretty overly frugal. But I definitely know that like some people, like you see something and it costs like $7.49. Yeah, that's closer to $7, but in my head, I would still round it up to $8. That's psychological pricing. Doesn't necessarily work on some people. Like I'm like, I'm not falling for that. But other people are like $7.49. Oh, it's close. That's practically $7. It's like, yeah, kind of. It just looks better and it draws some people in. So definitely something to consider. People like kind of round, even numbers. All right. Other things you need to consider about pricing. Payment period. Are you going to charge all of your clients on the first of the month? That's actually what I used to do. No matter how many sessions people had, I would just do all of my billing on like the first of the month. It made it really simple. It was also like the time that like I would redo all of my clients like programming and stuff. Like I would write my new programs at the beginning of the month as well. And so like I basically had like these 2 big paperwork days on like the 30th/31st and like the first of the month. So I'd have a couple days of paperwork and then I would have no paperwork for the rest of the month. And that was important to me at the time. So that's pricing. Seasonal allowance, are you giving like reductions? January 1st, that's when everybody wants to get in shape. So a lot of gyms offer really good deals at the beginning of the year because they're trying to get as many new clients as possible. That's a seasonal allowance when it comes to pricing and something you should certainly consider. And then, in my opinion, the most important one, volume discounts. Give price reductions for like offering more services. The one thing about personal training that is, it's amazing that we all get to be in charge of our schedules. It's amazing that you get to be your own boss. All of that is great. But one thing I will say about having like stability, or one thing I'll say about like being able to have all of that is it creates a lot of instability. You'll have like a really great month where you train like a lot of clients. And then like maybe next month, it's like the summer season and everybody's going out of town, taking road trips with the kids. And suddenly you are left with no clients. It's the holidays. Everyone's out of town. The holidays, maybe people are like, giving up my fitness goals. I'm gonna start strong in January. Like you're gonna have ups and downs. And so if you can get someone to purchase like more sessions up front, that's really, really great because that creates some stability. You know exactly how many sessions they have for a long, long time. So if you can offer a small discount, yeah, you might not be earning like, let's say you're charging $75 an hour. Maybe you get that price down to $60 an hour if they buy, 60 sessions. So it's like they bought a lot of sessions, which is going to last them a really long time. And yeah, you're earning $15 less an hour. That's a huge discount, by the way. Humongous discount. but like you have stability. You know exactly how much work you're going to have in the future. So sometimes it's worth getting your client for a longer period of time for volume discounts. That's something you want to consider when you are marketing your price. And then credit terms as well. Again, I kind of already mentioned that, but like, are you going to have to pay? Are you going to have to pay for like credit and things like that? If it costs you $1 every single time you do a credit card, maybe you charge another $1 on all of your sessions. Next one we've got is place, which is where you're marketing your service. The channels a product or service will go through to reach a customer. Okay, so your place is like, how are you appealing to your customers? Are you doing it through you know, a website? Are you doing it through social media, which is sort of the #1 way people are marketing nowadays? Like, social media is such a popular place for marketing to take place nowadays. But basically, like, where is your product catching people's eye? Like, where are people finding out about it? What channels are you going through? Are you doing a radio ad? Maybe that's effective, but it's kind of, I don't know, I think a little outdated. You got a lot of competition. You know, you're going to hear like LA Fitness on the radio as well. But maybe, you know, you kind of have to consider that stuff. So there's what we call market coverage here. And so market coverage is like, what will be the coverage? How many people are you reaching when you do like your product or services? So one of these examples is like intensive distribution. Intensive distribution is literally just like, get your information out to as many people as possible. Put flyers everywhere, put posters everywhere, get on radio, get on TV if you can, you know, like it's everywhere. Most commercial gyms are using widespread distribution. They are intensively just promoting to as many people as possible. But we are probably going to more primarily focus on selective distribution. And that narrows it to a few specific places. Like you're going to put flyers up for personal training services, maybe in a yoga studio that would allow you to do it. Maybe you decide to go to like a park that has like a notice board, you know, areas that are related to like health and wellness. Go to like a juice bar or like a cafe that's like a healthy cafe, you know. That's an example of like selective distribution. You are targeting those areas because you don't have enough money to buy 100 million flyers to place all over LA, you know, but you do have enough to kind of place them where you think is going to be strategic related to your business. Go to a GNC, slap up a flyer, you know, ask for versions of that. So that's a really good example of selective distribution. You're selectively focusing on a few areas. If you have a website or social media that you are promoting, Google, and you're doing it through like Google ads, for instance, you know, Google will ask you like, what type of websites do you primarily want to focus on? You're probably not going to like, you know, throw your ad for personal training on a website for lawnmowers, you know, like that doesn't really do much for you. But if you was on like a website for like yoga mats, that's something that like might catch somebody's eye. And then there's exclusive distribution, which really doesn't apply too much to us, but that's basically like promoting specifically to one product or seller. Equinox has like its own line of certifications. That's an example of exclusive distribution. Like you can only get this specific cert if you're at Equinox. 24 Hour Fitness has like a line of supplements that are kind of only associated with them. The way I always think of this is like Kirkland, like Costco has like the Kirkland brand, right? That's specific, or like Kroger has like its own stuff, you know. That's exclusive distribution. You're only offering it with one specific company in mind. And then lastly, our final P here is going to be promotion. And promotion is the communication of information about a product or service with the goal of generating a positive customer response. Okay, so this one is also pretty similar to place, but place is, again, tangible, whereas promotion is kind of not. right? So like this is where actual like sometimes people think like marketing and advertising are the same thing, right? This is where advertising really comes in, right? But advertising is an example of promotion, right? Promoting your product or service, right? Radio, print ads, like posters, like flyers, social media, things like that, right? So those are sort of what we're looking at for the 4 Ps there. Does anyone have any questions on those? I know we don't have a ton of people today. Questions, comments, concerns? Nope. Okay. Last little bit here. So best thing you can do for your business, or just for you as a personal trainer, one thing that's going to ensure that you are successful is this term right here that NASM loves to use, which is going to be uncompromising customer service. At the end of the day, you want to provide uncompromised customer service. So uncompromising customer service, right? This is absolutely key. Basically, it's how it's almost like your rep, or at least I guess it feeds into your rep. But basically, trainers who are obsessed with uncompromising service are obsessed with consistently adding value to their product or service for every member and client. Consistently adding value to each member and client, but in an uncompromising way. So guidelines, big guidelines here. Get to know every one of your clients inside and out, right? Take the opportunity to know your clientele. Right, so good examples of that, like, what are their hobbies and interests? That's a really good example of uncompromised customer service. Know your client's kid's name, like that's a really good way to like show that like you are paying attention to them. Ask them how their day is, like how's work been going when they come into the gym. All of that little chit chat personal stuff really, really enhances the experience for your client. And for the most part, this is going to come naturally to most people. But that's taking the opportunity to know your clientele. If they are trying to get in shape for a wedding and then the wedding happens, you should probably ask that client how the wedding went. Or if they went in for like a fitting in the middle of like, they got 6 months to work with you to kind of try and get in shape. The more often you like ask them how the wedding is going, the more like of a stronger bond you're going to build with that person. Get to know your client, because then once the wedding is over, like they reach their goal, are they going to continue training with you or not? It kind of depends on how pleasant the experience was. Your clients will stay with you for years if they have reason for it. So, oh my God. Oh, I see. I put it. All right. Remember to represent a positive image and high level of professionalism. That is also really important. Always represent a positive image and high level of professionalism. So always try to be as professional with your clients as possible. Show up on time. Have everything that you have done. Like, don't tell your clients that you're going to give them their homework and then have it like incomplete by time like you come into the gym. Make sure that you have that stuff for your clients like ready, right? Represent a positive and professional image. And then again, I cannot say enough, show up on time. Like always start your sessions on time. It's so easy when you're training like 3 or 4 or 5 clients in a row to like run 1 minute over and then another minute over and then another minute over until finally like your whole schedule is all screwed up. Try to get good about not doing that as quickly as possible. That is really important. So, and then never give the impression, we'll leave that as bold. That's a really big deal, actually. Never give the impression that a question is inconvenient, unnecessary, or unintelligent, right? Just make sure that like your client knows that like when they ask you a question, like you're excited to answer it. That's a big deal. That's uncompromising good customer service. Like you are excited to answer their questions because it means that you get to help this person. And that's what they're hiring you for, So you want to keep them excited about stuff like that. And then this is another one. There's a few examples here. Express ideas through verbal communication. That's huge. One of the big ones here, though, that I definitely want to include in your notes, obsess on opportunities to create moments that strengthen professional relationships. So you're going to hear the word like healthy obsession in this chapter when you read it. But like being obsessed about like being able to help as many people as possible, or being obsessed with the idea of helping your client reach their goals, that's a great way to convey that like you're really excited and get somebody to go, wow, this person really cares. Like I'm going to continue hiring them. So it's obsess is the term they like to use, which I love it because it's like intense. It's an intense word. Obsess on opportunities to strengthen your relationship with your client. And then lastly, do not merely receive complaints, but take ownership of them. So don't just, when your client says something might not be up to par, don't just go, oh, I'm sorry that happened. Be like, you know what? I'm sorry that happened, and I'm going to make sure that it doesn't happen again, right? Like take ownership of it. That's going to be absolutely, absolutely key. Now, remember, this is also uncompromising customer service. So if your client is like, hey, I'm really enjoying the personal training. This is going really, really well. Would you also help me move on Saturday? Like, does that have anything to do with health and fitness and personal training? No, it does not. So absolutely not. Do not compromise like your integrity just to make your customer happy. Do not date your clients. That is another part of uncompromised customer service. Like it is maintaining a professional distance with your clients at all times. If your clients like, if you show up to somebody's house to train them and that's what you're here for, part of a service should be that you show up on time. Not part of the service is, hey, I'm just getting ready to like put my shoes on and I'm going to get everything ready and clean up the space, but I'm running a little bit behind. Could you give me 5 minutes? Would you mind like walking my dog? Little things like that. You'll be surprised the weird questions you get. It's like they are trying to prepare the space, which is very much part of your personal training session, right? Can you tell this is a real life example, by the way? It's very clear that they are trying to like clear the space, right? Like that's related to your session. You can't train them if they don't have like the space cleared, if they don't have all the equipment set up. So your session cannot proceed effectively unless this thing happens. So you do need to give them the 5 minutes that they're asking for in order to kind of clean the space up. But if they're asking you to like fill that in, they're like, because I also have to like, and they're like, because I also have to walk my dog like right now. And if I don't do that, I'm not gonna have time after the session. It's like I can't do our session unless my dog gets walked. And it's like, well, walking the dog, not my responsibility, like not your responsibility, right? So you don't want to compromise yourself by suddenly like blurring the lines behind like what it is you are being hired to do. So instead, and this was my solution, is, well, why don't I help you clean up the space? Because like, that's just like me setting up dumbbells, right? That's very much related to the personal training job. And then why don't we both take your dog on a walk and we'll use it as your cardio warm up, right? Like, that's an example of like maintaining professional distance and like still being their trainer, not their friend. Okay. That's a really big deal. You really don't want to blur those lines, guys. The minute you start blurring those lines, you may run into a situation where one client is like, well, you know, we're both being charged the same thing, but you're walking this person's dog. You don't walk my dog. Now suddenly you've got like an issue between two of your clients. I mean, I cannot picture a scenario where people actually like know about that happening, like your clients like rubbing elbows or something. But like, you know, that's why we don't want to like blur those lines. The more you blur those lines, the more likely you are to land in an uncompromising position, which could cost you a client or even worse, get you sued. Successful personal trainers routinely ask this question. And this is a sentence, by the way. There's a sentence that I'm pretty sure is associated directly with one of your questions. So the final thing in our notes today is something that I think is a direct test question. So successful, I'm gonna put this in italics. Successful personal trainers routinely ask themselves this question. You know what? I take it back. We'll do that. This will be italics. If my entire future were based on the way this one client evaluated his or her experience right now, would I change anything? Ask yourself that question as often as possible. Because if you do, you're going to be you're going to land in a space that's safe. If you're constantly asking yourself, if my client decides black and white right now, they're going to purchase another package and re-up their membership, would they do it right now? Am I doing a good enough job for them? Right? That's what you want to continually ask yourself. So summarizing everything up, your 4 Ps are going to be an excellent tool that are going to help you, be able to market and like come up with a good product or service. So first, you need to understand like what your product is, right? Clearly defining your product can help you understand like what services you should be offering, right? What do people need? What product meets people's needs? Determining your price is going to be super important. It is not only about your income, which is what we're going to look at tomorrow, but it's also about like what people are able and willing to pay depending on how you're training them. What places should you market, right? Are you going to be more in like an upscale environment? Like, is your place going to be nice and clean and known for being upscale? Is it going to be like nitty and gritty, right? That's what you need to consider there. And then how are you going to promote your service? Is it going to be primarily through things like social media? Is it going to be primarily through like word of mouth? I forgot to mention word of mouth. Word of mouth is huge, by the way. In fact, that's the #1 most important marketing. Your reputation. You know, somebody being like, oh my God, Deborah's so great. Like, she's super professional. She kicks my butt. You got to meet her. You know, like that word of mouth stuff is like what gets you new clients all the time. So any questions today, guys? Questions, comments?
Hey, Brad.
Yeah, what's up, Jay?
On homework 1, I was trying to find the material to help me with those questions. I can't find any material.
Did you check PowerPoints 1 and 2?
Yeah, and then nothing was coming up, like on private contracting, things like that. And,
let me take a look.
Yeah, A's, F's, and A's have appointments. They get to go in first.
I hear the DMV. Oh God. Wait, I don't want that. Independent contractors and stuff. Yeah, some of that's in our notes. Some of that is in the PowerPoint. Disadvantages of independent contracting. I mean, a lot of that's. What stuff are you particular like towards the beginning of the or towards the end? Okay, that's the cover letter stuff. We know that's in there. Is it the independent contractor stuff?
It's the disadvantages of commercial fitness.
So yeah, like we talked about it briefly, and I thought we made it into the notes. I could be very much wrong about it. That would be day 2. So oh, I don't have a ton on independent contracting here. I wonder if that got bumped. You know what? I'll send out an email today, but let's have you guys hold off on some of that stuff because I think we're gonna address some of that stuff tomorrow. It might have been when I moved the whole day by day around a little bit for when we did the workshop. I might have moved that whole chunk in there.
Okay.
So hold off on that. That's so funny. It's funny you bring it up because Dominique also texted me about it. I might be able to, like, if worst case scenario, what I'll do is I will get the lecture up tomorrow, which will have that information, and I can reset everybody's stuff on Canvas to where, like, you know, it won't affect your grades or anything like that, because that section I think is in tomorrow's PowerPoint, the second half of tomorrow's PowerPoint. So hold off on that for now. There will be another one going, another piece going out tomorrow, another piece of homework based on today and tomorrow's lecture. So that might mean doing a little bit of catch up. But I'll take a look at that and send you guys an email in a bit. I'll have details on it.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, no problem. You guys have anything else for me today? Oh, doesn't look like it. See everybody.